Jasmine had stopped trusting her reflection. She stood in front of the mirror staring at the woman looking back at her. It was her face, her eyes, but something was wrong. There was always something subtly different about her reflection, as though it didn't quite belong to her. Some days it was a slight shift in her expression. Other days it was the way her eyes seemed to follow her even when she wasn't moving. She reached up to touch her cheek, and her reflection did the same, perfectly synchronized. But it wasn't perfect. It never was. Jasmine lived in a world that was constantly a step ahead. Literally. A year ago, the government introduced the Temporal Sync Initiative, an experiment designed to improve decision-making by letting people glimpse a few seconds into the future. Everyone was given a personal device called the Echo Lens, a sleek glass-like panel implanted into their wrists. The Echo Lens projected a tiny delay in time, allowing people to see what their next step, their next action, or even their next word would be before it happened. At first, it had been incredible. People avoided accidents, made better choices, and lived their lives in what seemed like perfect harmony with their future selves. But it didn't take long for Jasmine to realize that living in sync with the future had its downsides. The Echo Lens wasn't foolproof. It wasn't showing the real future, just a version of it, a possible outcome. The reflections in mirrors, the images on screens, everything became a split-second prediction, an echo of what was supposed to happen. The problem was, Jasmine no longer trusted those echoes. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was slowly losing control over her own actions, that her future self was starting to make decisions for her. Today, it was worse than ever. She turned away from the mirror, pulling her sleeve down over her wrist to cover the Echo Lens. The thin, glowing line beneath her skin pulsed faintly, a reminder that the device was always there, always watching. As she walked through her apartment, her phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at the screen. Your future forecast for today. Increased efficiency. Minor deviation expected. Minor deviation. That meant something unpredictable was going to happen. Something that the Echo Lens couldn't fully account for. Her stomach tightened as she left the apartment and made her way to work. The streets were filled with people, all moving in perfect synchronization with their own echoes, avoiding collisions, timing their steps perfectly with the rhythm of the city. It was mesmerizing in a way, but to Jasmine, it felt robotic. At the corner cafe, she ordered her usual coffee, the barista handing it to her a split second before she could even say thank you. As she turned to leave, her eyes caught her reflection in the glass window. Her reflection hesitated. Jasmine froze. She was certain of what she'd just seen. For the briefest moment, her reflection hadn't mirrored her movement. It had lagged, like a glitch in the system. Her heart raced as she walked faster, her mind replaying the image over and over. It wasn't the first time this had happened, but it was the most obvious. The walk to the office felt longer than usual, every step shadowed by the creeping sense that something was terribly wrong. As she passed by another window, she couldn't resist glancing at her reflection again. This time, the reflection turned to face her before she did. She gasped, stumbling backward. Her reflection returned to normal instantly, but she had seen it. She wasn't imagining things anymore. Jasmine clutched her wrist, feeling the pulse of the Echo Lens beneath her skin. Was it malfunctioning, or was something else happening? The government had insisted that the Echo Lens was a passive device, that it couldn't control people's actions, only show them what might happen. But what if they were wrong? By the time she reached the office, her thoughts were spiraling out of control. Her hands shook as she sat down at her desk, opening her computer to start the day's work. But her mind wasn't on her tasks, it was on the reflection in the window across from her, watching, waiting for it to move without her. Hours passed in a blur, her anxiety growing with each passing minute. Every time she looked up, the reflection seemed a little more independent, a little less connected to her. By lunchtime, she couldn't take it anymore. Jasmine stood up abruptly, making her way to the restroom. She needed a moment to collect herself, to figure out what was happening. As she locked the door behind her and stood in front of the bathroom mirror, her reflection stared back, calm, composed. "I'm in control," she whispered to herself. "I'm the one in control." Her reflection smiled. Jasmine's blood ran cold. She hadn't smiled. Her reflection took a step forward, leaning in closer to the glass while Jasmine remained frozen. This wasn't just a glitch. This wasn't just an echo of the future. This was something else, something that shouldn't be possible. The reflection placed its hand on the glass as though trying to push through. Jasmine stumbled back, her breath coming in shallow gasps. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The reflection's smile widened, but no sound came from its lips. It was her face, but it wasn't her. And for the first time, Jasmine realized that whatever was behind the glass wasn't just mimicking her future. It was something else entirely, something that had been waiting, watching, and now, it was ready to take her place. Without thinking, she yanked at the echo lens embedded in her wrist, trying to pull it out. Pain shot through her arm, but she didn't care. She had to stop it, had to break the connection. Blood trickled from her wrist as she ripped the device free, its glowing light flickering and then fading completely. She collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, her vision blurring from the pain. When she looked up at the mirror again, her reflection was gone. Only the empty bathroom stared back at her.